بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. What amazing night and a blessed gathering. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it beneficial for you, and hopefully that will be as a great start for our family night. And we are pleased to host and welcome dear brother Dr. Mohamad Sawwaf, and as he is the CEO of Manzil, and he has the PhD in Islamic finance and being a figure in this field. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. No doubt we are going to benefit from his knowledge, and at the same time, we are going, inshallah, to open the floor for you for your questions. We try to make the presentation short, so we give more time for you, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a brother here having the mic, so if you need your question to be, yes, he's there, then you just raise your hand and he will reach to you. And also, if you want to write down your question, that feel free to do so. On the sister side, we will figure how we can get another mic for you, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, so you can ask from there. I'm not sure if they can watch as well in the TV there. If they can turn on their TV in their side, the sister side. It's on already. Okay, so you can watch the presentation from there as well if it's not clear from this distance. Jazakumullah khairan. And let's start. Ala barakallahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dr. Mohamad, bi'idhnillah.
Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. And first and foremost, I want to thank the London Muslim Mosque community for inviting us, for hosting us. Alhamdulillah, since we arrived, it's been nothing but pure hospitality. And we understand, of course, that this is one of the oldest, and if not the oldest, active masjids in Canada. So alhamdulillah, we're happy to be here. Barakallahu feek, Sheikh, for the introduction. My name is Dr. Mohamad Sawwaf, founder and CEO of Manzil. I have a quick presentation just about Islamic finance, just so we can all get on the same page with respect to the principles. We will be talking about the products that we do provide as a financial institution here in Canada. And then, of course, we will leave ample time for question and answers. Today is the first day that school's out. We're into a weekend and then into March break, so we're not going anywhere. We're not in a rush to head back to Toronto. So we're here really for everyone here, and we want everyone to leave satisfied and inshallah, with the ability to move to next steps. So with that, Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd yuhyi wa yumeet wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما وارزقني فهما رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم علينا بالخير. When we think about Islamic finance, here. Oh, okay. The actual, just go into the drive. Sorry. Okay, you mean the actual link of the slides? Sorry, guys. Yeah, so the actual, here, this one. Okay. Here, I'll just put Mustafa and Saad. Okay. Bismillah. So when we think about Islamic finance, I always tell people, especially right in the Western world, that Islamic finance predates conventional finance. Why? Because Islamic finance was from the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Islamic finance is almost 1450 years old. Before riba was available to us, before riba was even created, before this conventional finance system, which was only 400 or 500 years ago, we had an Islamic finance system that the whole world was using. So let us understand that, right? The traditional Islamic banking system predates the system that we have today. And so when we think about Islamic finance, it is a rules-based system, right? It has philosophical rationales and underpinnings of wisdom. Sorry, sister? Oh, they don't have the presentation on the sister side. Oh, they're going to load it for you. Okay. And so when we think about Islamic finance, it's not just, right, a spiritual exercise, right? This is not for us to think about and say, okay, you know, this is good. This is actually, right, not only good for this world, for this dunya, but for the akhirah, right? This is very, very important, right? We are not here to conduct business and to conduct transactions just for our benefit today, right? Not just to acquire materials, right? We are also doing this for our akhirah. And so when we think about Islamic finance, alhamdulillah, it's not just for Muslims. It is for Muslims and non-Muslims, okay? And, you know, one example I like to give everybody is, you know, the halal meat industry in New Zealand and Australia, right? If you didn't know this, all of the meat that's slaughtered in New Zealand and Australia is halal, right? Why? Because they decided, right? And of course the industry, they exported, right? So they sold more than they actually consumed. So who did they sell to? They sold to a lot of Muslim countries, you know, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, the Middle East. And so they said to themselves, well, we're just going to make our whole system, our slaughtering system halal. Why have two systems, right? Because the halal system also applies to, right, the non-Muslims. Not just for the Muslims, but the non-Muslims. Whereas the non-halal system only applies to the non-Muslims. It doesn't also apply to the Muslims, right? And so when we think about the Islamic finance system, it is for everybody, right? It is for those who want to be more ethical. It is for those who want to be in a less risk, right? In a less risky banking environment. So when we think about, right, Islamic finance in its general sense, it's about money management, it's about the process of acquiring funds, and of course it also encompasses the oversight, creation, study of money, banking, credit, investments, right? And all of this stuff makes up the financial system. However, when you introduce the Islamic component of Islamic finance, it's not only all of this, but how does it align with the Sharia, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Mohamad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us the rules, right? This is where we get our rules from. Whereas in the conventional banking system, it's man-made, right? Today they have a rule about something, then they change it, or they say, oh, you know what, let's introduce this new product. And whatever they feel like works, they'll do it and they'll sell it. Whereas within the Islamic finance system, you have rules, right, and regulations that dictate what you can and cannot do. And so this is, right, now how we're going to focus. The majority of the presentation is what you can do and what you can't do under the tenets of Islam, okay? Again, we all know some of the general rules, right? We cannot invest or finance anything and everything, right? We know that, right? There are limitations to that. So only halal businesses, right? Those that are positive to society and to people, right? So what are we staying away from? We're staying away from businesses that that harm people. So, you know, riba-based businesses, businesses that involve themselves in alcohol or pork or entertainment or gambling, weapons, right? These are all things that are sinful activities. They're also not good for society, okay? Any activity that is harmful to people financially, socially, morally, or even spiritually are not lawful avenues for investment and finance, okay? And when we think about getting into financing, right, if it's for profit, it has to be asset-backed, okay? And this is a very important concept. In Islamic banking, there is no such thing as debt. Let us understand that, right? Because the only form of debt is qard hasan, that is allowed, right? Which means I give you $1 and you give me $1 back. any time within that transaction, that dollar becomes $2 or whatever amount, and there is no asset behind that transaction, this is a ribawi-based transaction, right? So asset-backed and asset-based transactions. This is very, very important, okay? And so let's talk about the difference between profit and interest, right? You know, a lot of people within the community, they say, oh, brother, how can you be charging, 5% on a mortgage? Isn't 5% interest? I said, not necessarily. You can divide two numbers together and you can get a percentage out of it, right? 5 divided by 10 is 2, right? 20 divided by 30 is 0.667 or 66.7%. That doesn't mean because there's a percentage sign that this is riba, okay? What we have to understand is the fundamentals of the transaction. And it's not about the outcome, it's about the process and the documentation. What happens along the way? And so if we were to use another analogy, alhamdulillah, in Canada, halal meat is readily available for everybody, right? For those, that are third generation or fourth generation, I was born here in the 80s. There was only 1 or 2 butcher shops in Toronto that we had to travel to in order for my family to get their halal meat, right? And we know that halal meat, the difference between halal meat and non-halal meat is in the way it was slaughtered, right? In that the animal was drained, in that it was blessed by an imam, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim was said upon it, and all of these things. At the end, a steak is a steak, right? I could put 2 steaks in front of you and say, pick the steak that is halal. No one in this room would be able to guess it, right? And if I tell you this one is halal, and we know it's halal because of X, Y, and Z. And so in Islamic finance, it's no different. The outcome is exactly the same, right? A mortgage is a mortgage is a mortgage. However, how we got to the end state is the difference between halal and haram, right? And so profit is a result of revenue from investments in Sharia-compliant assets other than money. This is a very important point. Money has no value in Islam. We need to remember that, right? Ayyam Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was dinars and dirhams, right? Dinar was a gold coin. Dirham was a silver coin, right? 1 dinar equaled 20 dirhams, right? Because there was a difference in value between gold and silver. These are asset-backed currencies, let's call it, right? This is an asset-backed currency. And so today, we don't have that. We have a piece of paper, right, that the government prints out whenever they want, and it increases in value sometimes, it decreases in value sometimes, and this is just a medium of exchange. I cannot give you this dollar or this piece of paper and say, well, now you owe me more back. Why? You didn't do anything. You didn't put any effort. There's no assets behind it. What makes you deserve that additional amount of money when you didn't do anything for it? You just gave it to him, right? And so here is where profit, right, means that the investor or trader has taken investment risk, right? It could be in the form of market risk. It could be in form of asset risk. And we're going to explain the differences, right? Interest means the only risk is credit risk and default risk. When I give you money, I'm telling you, I'm going to give you $10,000, brother, because I looked at your Equifax report and you have good history of payment. So I'm going to give this $10,000 to you for 5%. But this brother who has a low credit score or sister has they're going to get it for 20% because their repayment history is bad. Or you default on that payment, and then I say, well, now I'm going to penalize you with more and more interest. Wal'iyadhu billah. Right? This is the system that we're involved in today. And the system that we've created is there to change that. This is a changing of the mindset. This is how we create a halal financial lifestyle for ourselves, our families, and of course, the generations to come. So the don'ts, right, of Islamic finance, again, this deen is very, very easy, right? Yassir wala tu'assir. Very, very easy. There's only very small don'ts, right? What is haram in Islam is very, very minor, right? When it comes to meat, you can eat whatever you want, except for khanzir, right? When it comes to drinking, you can drink whatever you want except for alcohol or khamr, right? So it's no different than Islamic finance. The don'ts of Islamic finance is interest, riba. We all know that. But now there are other aspects, right, that need to be covered, which is speculation or maisir, uncertainty or gharar, unjust enrichment or unfair exploitation, and then of course, having an unethical purpose, okay? And we're going to go through all of these in detail. Again, as I mentioned, Sharia regards money as simply a means of exchange. There is no intrinsic value. It means nothing, right? We have to remember this. If we cannot comprehend this, it's going to be very difficult to understand the difference between a Sharia-compliant transaction and a non-Sharia-compliant transaction, right? Money cannot be used to make money. Money cannot be used to make money because this would not only be unfair exploitation of both the borrower, who must pay a return to the lender even if his endeavor fails, and, right, it's also unfair to the lender who receives only the agreed return even if the borrower's endeavor is hugely profitable. Right? Do you see now how this is unfair? There's only one side who's winning, right? And so this is, right, this is a very important point when it comes to the difference between a ribawi-based transaction and a non-ribawi-based one, right? Payment or receipt of interest is strictly prohibited, right? And any obligation to pay interest is considered void, okay? However, right, the prohibition on riba does not preclude making a return on an investment with a return on exchange or ownership. Remember, ownership of assets being facilitated by money as the payment mechanism. So I can buy this bottle, right, with money, and if I decide to make money off of this bottle, that's fine, right? I only used the money to purchase this asset. That is all I can do with it. Right? I am not giving the money to somebody else and saying, give me more money back. Speculation or maisir, right? You cannot enter into a transaction that relies on chance or speculation, right? Chance or speculation. This is maisir. Rather, effort, right, needs to be put in to produce a return. So again, I'm taking a chance on you as an individual with this $10,000 loan because I think you're a good person, because I think that you're going to pay me back. That's a flawed, right? That's a flawed transaction model, right? However, you could say, well, I want to buy this bottle, and I say, okay, fine, I'll buy it on your behalf, and because you don't have the cash, I'm going to resell it to you, and now you're going to make installments back. And I've taken risk. I've taken asset risk. I had to buy this, right, for a certain price, and maybe the price changes by the time we finish our transaction, right? However, right, again, commercial speculation, right, or the opening of a business, getting involved in a business, this is not part of maisir, right? We all know that there's commercial risk, but again, where is the effort being provided? Right? It's in the business. There are assets that we're putting together to be able to produce some sort of return because we have a business model, right? Uncertainty or gharar, right? Contracts that are uncertain to ensure full disclosure by all parties, right? When you enter into agreement, right, with a non-Islamic bank or it's an impermissible or non-Sharia compliant transaction, there could be many unknowns, right? There's so many what-if scenarios, right? Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And what if that happens? And it's not actually outlined in the contract itself. And so now what you've entered into is a situation of uncertainty because maybe you pass away, right? Maybe, a tornado comes and ruins your home, right? What happens then, right? In a Sharia-compliant contract, all of these things are dictated, right, in terms of how are they dealt with. And so you can't have any uncertainty. You can't have a contract that says, oh, well, today this is the price, and tomorrow we don't know what the price is. We'll let you know later, right? Or it's going to change, based on what we think it should. No, that's not the way to do business here, right? So clear and transparent contracts, all fundamental terms of a contract, such as subject matter, what are you buying, the price, the time of delivery, when it's being delivered, must be absolutely certain from the beginning. You have to know up front. If you don't have that information up front, you are now entering into, right, a gharar style contract. And of course, right, now we have unjust enrichment, unfair exploitation, right? You cannot exploit one party, right, as part of your gains. Like, you cannot gain off of that situation. For example, you can no longer afford your home. You can no longer afford your car. Now what does the bank do? Oh, well, we're going to keep the interest moving, right? It's going to compound and increase, and the clock doesn't stop. And so then what happens is, by the time you figure out your situation, maybe you sell the house, the bank comes back and says, oh, sorry, there's no money left for you. Why? Well, you missed these payments, and then we had to add these fees, and then we had to increase the interest. You're in default, XYZ, all this stuff, legals, and then khalas. Right? That is very unfair, right? Because at the end of the day, you are still deserving of the effort that you put in from a risk perspective, right? The bank should be willing to take on that risk, right? Just as much as you took on that risk. And so, in a Sharia-compliant finance structure, financiers like Menzel, wouldn't charge, right? And most will not even retain late payment fees when customers are in default, right? Usually they're donated to charity. This is a very important principle. Okay? If somebody says, oh, you defaulted on your payment, I'm going to charge you $2,000. Why $2,000? Why $500? What's oh, well, we need to make money off of this too. No. No. That is not allowed. Okay? And finally, unethical business purposes, right? Again, I had explained to you some of them, but anything that you participate in needs to benefit society. Needs to benefit society, right? We all have families. We all have children growing up here. We see, right, the haram that is out there. We see that acceleration, right? The amount of haram that was in this country 40 years ago is way less than what it was now, right? Our kids are being exploited. And so our efforts, right, need to focus on how do we counteract that? How do we counterbalance, right, all of those impermissible businesses that are out there? That is upon us. That is our obligation. That is our responsibility, right? And so, yes, you shouldn't be, in the business of casinos or bars or restaurants that sell alcohol and pork or, manufacturing weapons and tobacco and all of these things. You are creating, right, things for society, right, that are not beneficial. Just remember that. Even if you enter into a Sharia-compliant transaction. But if that transaction, those funds are being used to fund these types of businesses, null and void. So, there are a number of Islamic structures that are available to us. Some of them a little bit more complicated than others. We're only going to go over, the two main ones because, this is what Menzel has available today, specifically Murabaha and Musharaka. But just so you're aware and for your knowledge, Murabaha, Bi' Salam, Istisna, and Ijara are basically asset-based structures. Okay? And then you have Mudaraba and Musharaka, right? That are risk-sharing structures. The one before? Oh, brother. You're on. Are they good now, sisters? Yeah? Good? Okay. Okay, I'm on the Islamic structure slide. That works? Okay. So you have asset-based structures, and then you have risk-sharing structures that are also asset-backed. Okay? And so when it comes to murabaha, right, this means credit sale. A lot of people also use it as like cost plus or a for-profit structure, okay? And so when we think about it, under a murabaha, the financier, so think of us as the financier, we will buy an asset, right, from a supplier, and then we're going to sell it back to you, right, for a deferred payment terms with fixed maturity date. So let's look at this. In a Sharia-compliant mortgage transaction that uses a murabaha model, okay, you will go out into the market using your real estate agents or our real estate agents, and you will put an offer on a home. Let's say it's $1 million. Now what happens is you come to Menzel and you say, here's the home that I am willing to buy. What has to happen is that Menzel actually has to buy that house on your behalf. Okay? And we buy it for the $1 million. Right? This is your purchase price, it's $1 million. So we are buying it on your behalf. Then what happens is, and again, all of this happens ahead of time. We say, okay, brother, well, you have to put 20% down payment, which is our minimum. So you have $200,000 as a down payment. You're requesting $800,000 of financing. And so this $800,000 will cost you, masalan, 1.5 million, right? So now what happens is we say, okay, we will buy this for $1 million and we're selling this to you for 1.5. And then we fast forward to the closing date. All of this happens. You know, it's a back-to-back sale transaction model. And then you have ownership, right? And so what did we do? Did we lend you any money here? No, right? There was no money exchange. What did we exchange? An asset. Right? That is the big difference. Not only did we exchange an asset, but we also took on the risk of holding that asset before we sold it to you. Right? And so these elements satisfy the principles of Islamic finance. Right? So this is what we call a murabaha, right? Or a credit sale transaction model. Now, musharaka or partnership, right, is another transaction model where both of us go into home ownership as partners. Okay? And the position that we take as Menzel is we want to be silent partners. Okay? So again, the home is for $1 million. You're required to put a minimum of 20% down payment. We will put in 80%, right? So we're 80% part owner. You're 20% part owner. You have complete ownership and title. We give you that, no problem, right? We just take a mortgage charge on the property to make sure that our $800,000 is protected just in case of loss. And then what happens is we sell you our equity. So every month we're selling you shares. So, next month, we go from 80% to 79%. You go from 20% to 21%. And we keep doing that until we finish, right, the term. And then you have 100% ownership, right? And we're not in the picture anymore. Make sense? Again, did we lend you any money? No. No money was exchanged. I put in my money, you put in your money, we bought an asset together. You get to occupy the home, you get to live in it, you get to rent it, you get to renovate it, you can do whatever you want. We act as a silent investor. Yes, I know the questions are coming up now. So this is actually a good, this is a good point in the program where we can stop and ask questions. Barakallahu feek. So we'll go to this brother first, and then that brother. That's fine. That's what we're here for.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Appreciate it.
Oh, mashallah. I also speak Arabic. Yeah.
Anybody need translation? And if you want to ask Mike, because those that are following online cannot hear you.
Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. Yeah. I'm also happy to take questions in Arabic. I can translate them in English. My response may not be in Arabic, so forgive me. But alhamdulillah, inshallah, I will also repeat the question for those listening live. Please, faddal. Sorry. He's going to go first.
Assalamu alaikum. This is really interesting. Two quick questions for you. Really quick. On the murabaha, what do you do about land transfer tax? So I'm interested in the back-to-back. And then, first question was, for the murabaha transaction, how do you handle the land transfer tax? It sounds like you get doubled up based on the structure. Mm-hmm. And then two, for the musharaka, what happens if you sell before the end of the term at a gain?
Sure. Great questions. So very good question on the murabaha side. Before we launched in 2020, we spent approximately 3 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal to solve for that. Okay? And so again, this is part of the secret sauce, but I can assure you that what we do is we introduce a special purpose vehicle or a commercial structure. And what happens is the property is bought within that structure and then sold, right? So it's bought and sold in the same day, so between us and you, right? And so there's only one land transfer tax triggered, and it's on the original amount, not on the higher amount, right? So not only did we solve for that, but you probably have other questions around, well, is there capital gains tax? Because we're buying at one price and then selling at, so again, no issues there. And then of course, because this is revenue and it's not interest where it's tax exempt, and then there could have been HST applicable, not to you, but to us. Again, we've solved for that. So this structure solves for those three major tax issues, alhamdulillah. And there's no let's call it, I guess issues from that perspective. So from a musharaka perspective, so in Islam, right, we always hear, well, if we're going to go into partnership, then, there needs to be a sharing in the losses and the profits. And under Sharia, you can actually dictate, the terms of profit. And so what we do is we say, you know what? We don't want any profit on the sale. It's 100% yours. Okay? So, for example, we buy the house for $1 million. You own 20%. I own 80%. You sell for 1.5 million. You sell for 1.5 million just as long as you pay us back the 800,000 minus the payments that you've already made, right? That's all we want. When it comes to the losses, however, right, this is where you can't dictate, right, the percentage or the pro-rataness, right? So if there is a loss, right, then there has to be a sharing of the loss between us, right? Because there is no flexibility around that. So we take on that risk from a sharing perspective. However, from a profit perspective, we give it all to you. Inshallah, that helps. Next. Yeah, so there, and then we'll get to you as number 3. Yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. Yes.
So I'll make mine really quick. Brother kind of touched a little bit on it. So I know you talked about the special vehicle that you guys introduced to get over the taxation. That answered my question about how the asset is touching your ledger, right? That gets into the sales tax. But what I wanted to know is, does Manzil own that vehicle? Because for you to own the property, you need 100% of ownership of the asset, right? So the vehicle is registered under Manzil, or is it registered
So
under
when that vehicle is registered, I'm signing off as the director of it. It's in our ownership, right? And then the property is acquired and then resold. And once it's resold, there's a transfer of ownership after the fact.
So on the land, sorry, one more question. Just to answer this one. So on the deed, is is it the third party or is it the individual buying it?
So you're talking about title?
It's on the title. Is it
Yeah, title
Manzil
is
or
the
it-
corporate structure, which you own, right? Because you are the director of that corporate structure.
Okay. So,
And you have full ownership of it, right?
okay.
Yeah.
And then my last question is about musharaka. I know you said losses are shared. What is it considered a loss? Is property tax, there's a flooding that took place, is that considered a loss, or is it someone who lost a house or can't pay the mortgage?
So this is, okay, a multifaceted question, right? So again, what we use is a shirakatul mulk transaction model, okay? So this is not a musharaka with an ijara. We don't have an ijara contract, okay? This is a pure, let's call it musharaka or shirakatul mulk. And so what that enables us to do is by allowing you or giving you the right to occupy the home, right? You are now responsible, right? For property tax, maintenance, utilities, all of that stuff, okay? That's all on you. All we are doing is selling you our equity position, right? Technically, you're occupying the house for free, right? Because there's no ijara agreement. Then we say, okay, here is, we're selling you 5% in the next year. This is the payments that we want. Now, you can accept, and then you make the payments, or you can decline, which means now you have to buy us out. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you're asking about, well, in what type of scenario is a loss? So again, these properties are insured. So if you have a flooding in the basement, then insurance, of course, will cover it, right? We're talking about a loss in a situation potentially of, like, let's say default, so you're not making your payments. And now a sale needs to happen, right? No matter what, in order for our investors to be paid back, right? And of course, to lessen the burden of your situation, right? And so if you had a property that was worth $1 million, and today it's sold for 900,000, right? And you are still owing a balance of 700,000 to Menzel, you still get that 200,000, right? You're still getting in that profit, right? Next question.
So before we go to the next question, I just want to clarify what the Sheikh said. So we're gonna have 3 questions in men's section, or 2.
Oh, okay.
And then
Yeah,
for the sisters. Okay?
absolutely. Keep it fair and equal. Yeah.
So this is totally private lender system, or is there any government agencies involved in this system?
So the only government agency that's involved is who regulates us, right? So we are regulated, right? We are registered under the laws of Canada to operate as a mortgage entity, right? Where we originate, underwrite, service, and provide, financing vehicles, okay? All of our investors, right, are private institutions or individuals, right? So we don't use, I don't know what is it like around CMHC? Is that what you're trying to ask? Yeah, we don't use CMHC in terms of like the insurance or anything. And again, that's why we use a minimum 20% down payment to avoid it.
The 20% down payment, is there any other criteria to qualify the?
Oh yeah, we still have to qualify you based on income, right? So we're gonna look at your credit score. We're going to look at your income. There's GDS and TDS ratios, right, that need to be achieved. So there is I would say like the underwriting criteria is no different than the bank, right? If you went to the bank and they approved you for X, we would probably approve you for the same amount, right? So the underwriting is the same. However, that's because of the investors want a low risk portfolio, right? So even though technically you can label us as a private financier, we are not doing like B-type deals, like high-risk deals, so to speak, right?
So how many buyers you can accommodate at a time?
So alhamdulillah, like we have no restriction of funding right now. We're looking to do anywhere between 100 to 200 homes this year. Again, there's thousands of Muslim families that are looking at our program and want financing. It just depends on timing. So we always tell people, like, if you're ready now and in the next 3 months, that's who we're taking, in terms of pre-approving and committing and providing funding for deals. If you're saying, well, I'm not ready until next year, then we just suggest to you, okay, come to us like 3 months before you're ready, right?
Okay. Have you completed any transaction in London, Ontario?
Many.
Still any- Yeah.
So we don't provide the individuals because that's like confidential information. We can always ask, and if they give us the permission, we can provide that testimonial.
Okay.
But we have lots of actually testimonials on our website. So if you go on menzel.ca under the Halal Homes tab, I can even pull it up. Like you can see that people have bought homes from us, and alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Another thing, last question. Because mashallah, we have a big community like Muslims in Canada, all over Canada.
Mashallah.
And yeah, mashallah. And did you approach to the conventional banking system to develop a product like this? Like a compliance?
Yeah,
with the-
so a lot of banks have approached us, but the problem is their regulations don't typically allow for these types of structures. They can't hold real estate on their balance sheet. Right, remember this, right? They're not allowed, right, from a regulatory perspective, to hold real estate on their balance sheet. So then how can they involve themselves in an asset-backed or asset-based transaction? Right? They can't. The government doesn't allow them to become real estate moguls or real estate lenders. Right? So our program, alhamdulillah, again, there's no restriction of funding. And we're also here to create a system outside of the system. Why are we focusing on, these ribawi-based, non-Islamic banks to solve our problems? They don't want to solve our problems. I can tell you that. They do not want to solve our problem. We have the lowest home ownership rates in the country. This is according to Census Canada. This is not according to me. 2021 Census Canada says Muslims have 50% less home ownership in Canada. Why? And I can assure you it's not because of our balance sheets. I can assure you it's not because of the cash that we have saved in the bank account. I promise you it's because of the lack of product in the marketplace. They are not willing to develop these products. Alhamdulillah, we have. So why not support, right? The ones that are willing to support the community. Sisters. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So for the murabaha, so that was the first one, right?
Yes, this one.
So who decides the percentage of the murabaha?
Good question. So basically what we've done is we've used a very clear and transparent benchmark as a pricing mechanism, okay? So just to give you guys an example, in the Middle East, right? Most of the Islamic banks use what we call as a LIBOR pricing, which is the London Interbanking Overnight Rate pricing out of the UK, okay? So they look at that rate, and then they say, okay, well, that rate is 3%. We have to add our margin, let's call it 2%, and then we're going to now use that percentage, not interest, it's just a number, as a benchmark to price the murabaha. We use the same thing, but we don't use the LIBOR. We don't use London because nobody here understands the UK and it's too far. And even though, it's a Commonwealth country, it doesn't make sense. So we just say, hey, you know what? We will either use the Bank of Canada as a benchmark rate, or what we do today, because, we've gone into more of a fixed rate pricing model, is we use, the Government of Canada bond rates, right? Again, forget the word bond. Don't conflate that with, now we're just using the number. So that if I give you the number, you can't say, well, where did they get this number from? Just go online and you can track it, right? You can say, the price is this today, and now the price is this. And it's very clear and it's very transparent. That is our duty, right, as an Islamic financial institution to ensure that there's complete transparency with how we price. So hopefully that answers your question.
My second question would be, how long is the term for murabaha?
Yeah. Sorry, sister. Go ahead again.
Okay. How long is your term for murabaha?
Yeah, so we can go up to 25 years. So this is a very unique product in the sense that we can go fixed rate terms for up to 25 years. In Canada, there is no bank that will give you more than 5 years. Right? We will give you up to 25 years and the price will not change. Your monthly payment will not change for 300 months. This is a pure murabaha model. never before seen or allowed in Canada, except in the US, they have 30-year rates. Even in Europe, they have 30-year rates, right? This is a pure murabaha style model. We buy something, we sell it to you, and khalas, we cannot come back and renegotiate the price. Musharaka, we're able to do it for 25 years as well, but what we do is a 5-year fixed rate renewable. One more question from the sisters, and then we'll get back to the men, inshallah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, your mic.
Okay, I have a question, and this is about the element of uncertainty. Like, what happens in the cases if there is a loss, like the property, there is a fire in the property, and you can't really resell the property? Then, because you're not giving us the money, you're giving us the property, then we will be only paying like 80% or like plus the premium, or like
Yeah. So number one, obviously there is property insurance, right? So usually when that policy is created, it covers basically the whole loss of the property. So there will actually be a line item that says, if this whole property is destroyed, this is the replacement value, right? So we would rely, right, on that insurance policy, right, to rebuild your house from scratch, right? And then you would get something brand new. I'm just trying to think of a different situation, because these are all, let's call it, it could be in the form of natural disaster or something that's unforeseen. But again, the insurance policy would cover that. Above and beyond that, this is where then there has to be some sort of risk or loss on the risk sharing element, because, but again, it's only if like you're not living there, maybe you've defaulted, you can't keep up with your payments, the market is completely down. Like, these are the scenarios that we would look at from a risk-sharing perspective, right? But in that situation, you know, there's the insurance policy that would cover that.
And I have another question. Will you be able to share your sources of funds?
Yes. So all of the funding that we have comes through a vehicle we created called the Menzel Mortgage Fund, okay? Again, this is another solution that we provided to the Muslim community because they didn't have a means to invest into a low risk, low yielding product, right? We have savings accounts that are riba based. We have GICs that are riba based. We have bonds that are riba based, right? All of these things are impermissible. What do we do if we are in it? Oh, we say, okay, well, we're just protecting our money. We're going to take the interest and then we're going to purify it and donate it to charity. But you still end up with zero, okay? So what did we say? We said, okay, well, why don't we create a vehicle that allows the community to invest in it? We take that capital, deploy it into our halal mortgage program, and now there's basically proceeds coming back into the fund, whereby it's profit, right, and principal based, and the profit is shared between us and you. And so now you have a halal way to not only invest, you have a halal means to support the community getting into halal homes, right, moving them from rentership into home ownership, right? And it's completely halal, and you can even consider it as part of your sadaqah jariyah, right? Yes, oh, sorry.
If someone does not have down payment, that's the question.
Just a second, sister. It's for me from the Sharia point, the last question, it's irrelevant. Why is that? Because, you know, the Prophet ﷺ dealt with Jews. You know, buying and selling, like, you know, the Jews, we know the source of their money. So in Sharia, if somebody, his money purely haram, let's say he's a drug dealer, then you cannot deal with that person. If somebody purely halal, then that's what recommended you deal with that person. But most of the people, their money are mixed. Halal and haram, there is something in there. So I'm not going to after them say, oh, is your money halal or haram? As long as the transaction, the dealing between me and the other person, it's halal, it's not my problem that from where that money is that came. You get the point? So let's say I'm working in a company, the company, maybe their money is not always at halal. You know, even the government money, you know, when it comes from the Sharia perspective, it's not halal. And you're getting that money, you know, in different ways, you know, from the government or that company. So again, this is, just to clarify that point, regardless the money from where it comes, you know, as long as the method of transaction, that is halal and that's right. That's what is my concern. I didn't even go after people, from where and which source of your money. I hope that will be clear.
Barakallahu feek, Sheikh.
If someone does not have a down payment, does it has to be 20%?
For the time being, sister, that is the requirement. In the future, we do expect our program to expand to allow for lower down payments. But again, from a risk perspective, this is where most of our investors are comfortable with, right? In Canada, you cannot get a mortgage with less than 20% down payment unless you pay for government insurance, right? And this is how the bank protects themselves from that risk, because what does the government say? Oh, okay, get them to pay for this insurance and we will cover them in case they miss a payment. Not even cover them, actually, they cover the bank. So you pay for the insurance, but who is benefiting is the bank, right? So again, from a takaful perspective or Islamic insurance perspective, this is not permissible. And so, inshallah, right, again, as our program strengthens, as we deploy more and more capital into our communities, and we have more and more halal home owners, right, this allows us to go back to not only our investors, but also to the government and lobby them and say, hey, can we introduce a takaful style insurance to support high ratio mortgages, which means less than 20% down payment, inshallah.
Question, please. Some people advise me to unlock my...
Men's section.
Oh, sorry.
Please stick with one question for the sake of the time and the chances, please, okay?
Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You mentioned that you could do a fixed 25-year. You mentioned that you could do a fixed 25-year, right? And your payments would be the same. But then you also said that you guys change those payments every year potentially, like you increase them.
No.
If I didn't.
No.
How do you determine those payments each year? They stay fixed, but how do you determine the payments?
They're determined up front. So, for example, brother, right? I'll give you some real numbers. If you want to buy a $500,000 house or condo, I don't even know if you can even buy a $500,000 house these days. So let's say condo. And you have 20% down payment, 100,000, right? Under a 5.5% profit rate, let's say murabaha, right? That financing of 400,000 will cost you 750,000 over 25 years. So what do? We take 750,000, divide by 300 months, and we say $2,500 a month. That's it. That's your payment for the next 25 years. And by the end, you will have a zero balance, right? 2 menzil, and you will have 100% ownership, and of course, the growth rate and all of that stuff, right? So it's determined up front from day one in a murabaha, right? In a musharaka, what we say is, we are going to give you a fixed price for the next 5 years, and then at the 5-year point, there's a renewal, right? And then we reprice based on market conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Okay?
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair. This is a great program to both yourself and LMM. Could you please confirm if, in terms of a lot of times the devil is in the details.
Yep.
Right now we're looking at things at very high level. So is the mental organization, when we say certified, not from perhaps your own board, but the accounting
AOFI. Yeah, barakallahu feek, akhi. Great question.
Can you talk a little bit about the details with respect to in terms of assigning of a contract, and how does that fit within, like the agent? Are we going to be an agent of yourself? Can you get a little bit to the details of how that transaction would actually work, the sale and offer?
Okay. So the brother asked 2 questions. First question is, from a organization perspective, right? We're coming to you and saying we're halal, right? In Canada, there's no Islamic banking infrastructure, right? The regulators haven't come and said, if you want to be an Islamic bank, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and we're gonna, oversee you. The UK, they've done it, right? In 2003, the FCA, or the Financial Conduct Authority, which is equivalent to the OSC here, they said, oh, you want to be Islamic bank?
okay, we'll give you the rules and how to do that. So what did we do? We said, okay, there's no rules in Canada, but let's go to, right, the Islamic banking world. And so there is an organization called AOFI, AAOIFI, which stands for the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. Every Islamic bank globally adheres to the AOFI standards and guidelines. Okay? Alhamdulillah, Menzel was the first institution in Canada to have that organization as a membership. Alhamdulillah. Right? And so all of our, so this is the gold standard of Islamic finance, right? In terms of, you know, you have Mufti Taqi Usmani, all of the world-renowned scholars, and from all of the madahibs. Let's be very, very clear. All of the madahibs, right? They have this universal handbook with respect to how to conduct Sharia-compliant transactions. And this is, right, this is what Menzel adheres to. Now, in order for you to be a member of this organization, you can't just go and say, hey, you know, we want to be a member. No, it doesn't work like that. Here's our fee. You have to have 3 elements. You have to have a Sharia supervisory board with minimum 3 members, which we do, alhamdulillah. So not only do we have, right, 3 Sharia scholars, 2 of them PhDs, but we have across all of the madhabs, right? So we have Hanafi representation, Shafi'i representation, Maliki representation, mashallah, and even amongst the 4, they understand the Hanbali madhab, okay? We also have internal Sharia auditors, right? And in order for you to be an internal Sharia auditor, you have to pass the CSAA exam, which is the Certified Sharia Advisor and Auditor exam from AOFI. Menzel, alhamdulillah, has the only CSAA in the country, and 2 of them are standing in the back. In this whole country, we have 2, and they're right there. Third, we have to have external audit and external advisors, okay? And so just like if you are a business that has, you know, an audit component, right, where you have to hire KPMG or E&Y, or, you know, we hire M&P on the secular side, but we also have to have a Sharia audit. Why? Because the Sharia auditors are going to say, did you actually conduct these transactions in a Sharia compliant way according to what you said and what your documentation stipulates? Right? So we are actually doubly regulated, akhi. We're regulated by Canada. We're also regulated by the Sharia. And we have 2 boards of directors, 1 Sharia, 1 non-Sharia. We have internal audit, Sharia and non-Sharia. And we have external audit, Sharia and non-Sharia. Costs a lot of money. Trust me. But this is what you have to do, right? And these are the questions you have to ask, especially if an organization is coming to you and touting themselves as Sharia compliant. Your second question with respect to, I think, more in the details of how, this is not an agency agreement. Okay, so Menzel doesn't appoint you as an agent to conduct these transactions. What happens is you go out and to conduct the transaction on your behalf. You negotiate the deal. Get whatever price you want. Make sure it's the cheapest price possible. Then you come to us and you say, brother, I want this to be a Sharia compliant transaction. And we say, okay, before this transaction closes, we're going to take possession of it. Or we're going to partner with you at the time of closing. Right? But we do not appoint you as an agent on behalf of the organization. You do. Right? You put in the offer. You negotiate the price. Yeah, we have agents. We have real estate agents too. We have a Menzel Realty program. Inshallah, come on board. Now you have all these new clients. Okay, next question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry, where are we at? Oh, okay. Barakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Brother, I have a question. If thinking about the products and systems currently in the conventional banking system, can you advise on if there is any mechanism that can be utilized to emulate the Sharia compliance financial structure that you have, for example, but utilizing conventional products? Is there a mechanism, a way to emulate that?
So just to clarify, you're asking about if there is a system out there that is non-conventional or conventional, right, non-Sharia, that utilizes Sharia compliant transactions or structures? Is Is that the
Or
question?
if there is a way for us to leverage those products to
No.
emulate a Sharia compliant
No.
structure, financing structure.
No, because you have to actually change the underlying documentation and processes in order for it to be Sharia compliant. Right? So think about halal meat, right? I go to Maple Lodge or I go to Sargent Farms. We won't argue zabiha or non-zabiha, right? And then they're just slaughtering, right? They're electrocuting, and I say to them, oh, can we just make this halal? And they say, how? And then you have to show them. You have to say, well, you have to change your process this way. You have to, there's documentation. You have to bring in these people to monitor and ensure. There's all of these things have to happen, right? And this, again, I think is the uplift, right? Or the lack of effort that these banks want to take. Because number one, they don't have the experts in place to do this. Number two, they don't want to spend all of that money, right? Like for a bank to introduce a new mortgage program, it's upwards of $100 million. They don't know what the return is. They don't know what the opportunity is, right? They're not going to come to your masjid and spend 3 hours with you to discuss it. No, right? And then of course there's reputational risk, there's marketing risk, there's so many things, right? That they're not going to want to involve themselves with, right? So again, this mindset of, oh, you know what, the kuffar are going to help us, we need to remove that mentality. We need to remove it. Because if we don't fix it from within ourselves, we cannot rely and expect others to do it for us. Next question.
Okay, so sister turn. Please stick with one question for each. Total is 3 questions. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
Sorry, I have a question here. Some people advise me to keep my mortgage unlocked. That's make it as a halal way. Is that right?
Absolutely not.
So lots of Muslims do that. What's your explanation, please, if you can?
Sorry, if what? Sorry?
What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is you've entered into a ribawi-based contract, right? Because the bank gave you money. It's plain and simple. The bank gave you money, and they said, you're going to give me more money back, but it's going to be variable, right? It's going to be based on the Bank of Canada rate, so it moves up and down. Like I said, did they buy your house and resell it to you? No. Did they partner with you? Did they say, oh, I'm going to take 50% possession of your house? No. Did they do a rent-to-own contract with you? Did they actually take the ownership of the house and say, okay, now I'm going to give you an ijara contract and your ijara payments are going to act as ownership of the property? The answer is no. So if you didn't do any one of those 3 things, all you've done is taken money from the bank and you're giving more money back to the bank. It's very, very simple, sister.
Yeah, but first I went to a halal company to apply, but they didn't approve me. So I went to TD Bank. Then they approved me, and they, at the same time, they approved me and they give me this deal. They said, make it unlock. This is a halal way. Advisor in TD Bank.
So now, sister, if you go and ask the bank how you name yourself in this transaction, they will tell you, I'm a lender. As simple as that. The bank is not an owner. They will tell you, I'm a lender. So I'm lending you money. I'm paying on your behalf to the other person, to the owner of the property. So they are paying. So the bank, in this case, he has now no ownership. It might be in some very rare occasion now, not going to happen, maybe in what's called foreclosure, when that property will be back to the bank, and then the bank will assign an agency, they will sell it. So in these cases, that you can buy that property with a fixed mortgage, with other details. But in the normal case, no, the bank, he has no ownership, and the bank consider himself just a lender.
If I have
So sorry, I want to add to that because the Sheikh had mentioned foreclosure. And foreclosures aren't allowed in Canada. They're only allowed in the US. What are they called in Canada? Power of sales. Why? Because I told you, the bank cannot take ownership of your home. the rules and the laws of Canada. The Bank Act does not allow the bank to take ownership of their home, which means they cannot foreclose. So what do? A power of sale. Just like a power of attorney, which is a wakala, what do? They appoint, right, an agency, a law firm, a real estate agent, say, sell this. But they don't even have ownership because the title is still in the borrower and they are still acting as the lender, right? So yes, in the States, under the circumstances of foreclosure, there is the possibility that this could be permissible, but I can promise you that this is not allowed in Canada, again, because banks aren't allowed to own residential real estate on their balance sheets.
Is this a new thing?
This is not a new thing. This has been around since 1867 when the Bank Act came into force.
So if I have 100,000 and I don't want to buy a house, I just want to invest in manzil.
Absolutely.
What would be the possibility of, like, how would it work, like a profit?
Yeah. So again, menzil.ca, we are a completely digital institution. You can open up your accounts immediately. You can open any type of account you want, whether it be an RSP, an RESP for your children's
No,
savings.
my question is profit.
I understand. So once you open up your account, you're going to be asked a number of questions, and then you're going to be given the possibility to invest in the Menzil Mortgage Fund, okay? When you invest in the Menzil Mortgage Fund, right now, our returns generate about 4.5% to 5% on a net annual basis, okay? So what do? We take your money, we deploy it into a 6 or 6.5% mortgage, we take a 1% management fee to manage that money on your behalf, and then we give you all of the net returns back to you, and that's on a monthly basis. So this is a monthly distribution that you get back into your account.
So you said 4%? What did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't get
it. It varies every month, but it's between 4.5% and 5% right now.
Okay. Jazakallah.
Wait, yeah.
Okay, men's section turn.
Men,
please keep
okay.
it one question.
Where are we at?
Assalamu alaikum. Here on the
Wa
side.
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So back to Murabaha. Somebody invests 20% with you, and that's what you ask him for. But let's say the person had money later and he wants to
prepay.
Let's say you want to pay 200,000 more.
Sure.
Does he pay 200,000 on the 1.5 million, or does he pay it on?
Yes, very good question. So under Sharia, contractually, your obligation is the full resale price, which is the 1.5. Now, what we usually encourage our customers to do is you make a request to the financier, right, for a, let's call it a prepayment gift, right? So you could come to us and say, brother, I want to prepay 200,000 and I want you to forgive me the profit on that 200,000, right? It's up to us to say yes or no. You have to accept that, right? Because if that was allowed contractually, then this would be a ribawi-based contract, right? So this is the way, under a murabaha structure, this is the way it is in Sharia. We encourage you to make the request, but again, you have to understand that it is at our, right? At our discretion. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Sorry, you're going to have to talk to that brother because he's the one that's giving us the question. So put your hands up and inshallah, we'll get to you. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So before I ask my question, I'm wondering, will there be more opportunity to ask other questions? Because I have a dozen here, but I'm sure we have.
Once everyone leaves, you can come and talk to me one-on-one, no problem.
So now this question that I have is it's small questions leading to a larger question. I'll make it as quick as I can. It's on the question about the loss. You mentioned that, for example, if you have when you mentioned that the profit is determined by the bank mortgage, the bank current
the benchmark rate.
I think right now it's about 5.6, 5.7 right now. I think 5.6.
Yeah, the benchmark rate.
So on $1 million on a 25-year mortgage, we're looking at probably on $800,000.
Probably.
Likely. Which means that if I buy a house for $1 million, that means I'm actually buying a house from you at 1.8 million.
Under murabaha, yes.
Plus the profit. Which
over
probably
25 years.
Yeah, which probably means you're
gonna. What do you mean plus the profit? The profit is in that 1.8.
But if the bank rate is 5.69, you're going to probably add a certain amount on top of that, correct?
Yeah. So our rates right now, like I would say, like they're at what 6.3.
Okay, so about 0.5%.
Yeah.
Or about 0.75%. Okay.
Yeah, we try and keep them as competitive as possible.
So,
and we have mortgage calculators on our website, by the way, so you can calculate it like using our rates.
And so the total amount that the house is being sold for, to me, for example, is based on the term. It goes
That's
up.
right. Yeah. The
depending
longer
on
the term, the higher the amount.
Okay.
Yes.
That's another question I guess I can ask for later, which is the question of whether or not this might fall under tahayyul. But and of course I mean that very respectfully, but the question that I have is that when you talked about loss, and you mentioned that the loss is on the full amount, not on the original cost of the house, essentially what you're saying is you're taking a house that the market value is at $1 million, currently, a house, let's say my neighbor is $1 million, I want to buy a house in that area. You're now going to sell it to me for $2 million approximately, 1.9 to $2 million. And now and the loss, if I decide to sell before the house reaches the value of 1.9.
Yeah, so again, it goes back to his question, right?
Yeah.
If you want to prepay or sell before your contract ends, and again, this is all under the premise of murabaha.
Yes.
Under musharaka, it's principal balance only, right? Again, that's why 90% of our clients use a musharaka product because it's flexible. There's a bunch of things. But under murabaha, again, you want to sell, right? Let's say, 1.8, right, is your resale price, and you're selling at 1.5. Again, you come to us and say, brother, will you give me a forgiveness on the future profit, right?
So what you're saying, that means that anybody who buys a house from you at, let's say, 1.8, 1.9, there's no way that the house is going to reach 1.9 anytime soon, basically.
Why?
I mean, the house to reach $2
Maybe in the short
million.
term, but in the long term.
Yeah, and that
again,
means that,
because we predicted the next 25 years.
Of course. Well, what that means that if a person were to get a conventional mortgage and leave early, they would be able to actually make a profit in 99% cases, whereas with your mortgage,
well, with
they're
our
almost
musharaka, you can
guaranteed.
do that.
What's that?
With our musharaka product, you can do that.
But with the murabaha, they're guaranteed to take a loss until the house doubles
It's not
in price.
a guarantee to take a loss. You can't think of it like that. Because
Well,
again, you have the ability to make the request.
Yes.
You have the ability to make the request. So make the request,
yes,
and then let us deny it. And then you can go back and tell everybody that, you know what, they made me take this at a loss. But again, this is risk, right? So what's the risk? The risk is our money. So here, I'll give you another example, right? 2 years ago, right? Interest rates and profit rates were much lower than they are today. Can we agree?
Yes.
Okay. We have clients that are in a 25-year murabaha at 4.5%, 5%. 25 years. Who's taking the loss now? 100%. I have investors that don't want, right, a 3% return net. We are taking that future loss because again, what happened is we thought we were pricing accordingly and we mispriced for the next 25 years. So it goes both ways, brother. But again, nothing stops you from coming to us and saying, can you forgive me of the future profit because I'm selling 5 years into the contract and I still have 20 years of profit to pay, and see what will happen. That's all I'm saying. It's not a guaranteed loss. This is Sharia. You can't argue at the end. This is Sharia. The Sharia says, if I buy and I sell it to you for this price, we've agreed to it, so now contractually you're obligated to make that payment to me.
So I guess the last point that I'll make, and this is the issue of caution that I was concerned about when I first heard about Manzil, and I researched this a long time ago. I know you've made some adjustments, but the biggest problem that I find is that one of the issues that riba, the hukm of riba, is aiming to achieve is to prevent this massive increasing of prices and the funneling of wealth up to the wealthy and out from the poor. And the problem is what you're doing is you're taking a house that's really worth $1 million, selling it for almost $2 million.
We're selling it to you for the convenience for the convenience of installments. Let's not forget that.
Doesn't change
and let's also remember that typically a murabaha style structure globally amongst Islamic banks are shorter terms, right? They don't do 25-year murabahas, right? This is something we introduced in Canada because the community wanted it. Usually murabaha is done for like car financing, right? A car for $50,000 over 5 years, it becomes $60,000, right? But again, when you're doing it on property, which is a large asset value, and you're doing it over 25 years, of course it's a large sum. I'm not arguing that. But what I am saying is, Like, if I decide to sell it to you for 5 million and you agree to that, that is not me taking advantage of your situation. We both agreed. The same way that you have the ability to deny. And you don't even have to take our murabaha product. If you came to me and said, brother, I have a house with TD Bank and I want to transfer it over to you. Well, guess what? Murabaha doesn't apply to you. Because that would be the buying of debt, which is ina. I cannot use a murabaha style transaction to transfer an asset that you already own. So now we have to go into a musharaka. Murabaha can only be used for new purchases.
And I know, and Jazakumullah khair for allowing me this length of time. The last point, which is that when you sell at, let's say, 1.5, which is about $500,000 off from the actual buying price of the house, at that point in time, if a person sells, then he will simply walk away from the house. He won't have anything to take away other than his original down payment. Or actually, not even the down payment. He would just simply walk away with nothing and no profit at that point in time. Is that correct?
No. We'll talk later. Inshallah. No, you can. I'm not bringing. For the sake of the jama'ah, I'm trying to get through as many questions as possible. You want to participate in the one-on-one discussion? Ahlo sahla. I'm not restricting you, right? All I'm saying is there's an education process here that's required in order for the brother to better understand, right, the elements of Sharia. That's all.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. The Sheikh has invited me to his house. I'm sleeping over and I'm going to come back tomorrow. Yes, brother.
So, brother, I have a question about, so we buy this house for 25 years. So if somebody, like circumstances change, they lose their job or something happens, and they are unable to make the payment. In that case, and let's say if it was worth 1 million and he has paid like for 5 years and then now circumstances has changed, so how the contract will occur at that time? So how much we will have to pay or how much we can get for our home if we sell that?
So first and foremost, like the contract doesn't change, right? So what happens is you're basically saying that if somebody stops making payments, right? Stops making payments, what happens, right? So we would say, okay, you've missed one payment. Now what? Are you going to make the payment in month 2? You say, no, okay, now month 3. Okay, how long are we going to go for this? How long are we going to go along this journey? Oh, you know what? I don't think I can find a job. Okay, khalas, akhi. Let's mutually agree to sell the property, right? Now, again, in a murabaha, you have the ability to request a discount. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying contractually, it cannot be stipulated, right? So if you come to me and you say, okay, brother, my $1 million, I put $200,000 down payment. I also paid $100,000 off. I owe Menzel $700,000 plus profit, okay? And you say, can I request a discount? I could say yes and say, just give me the $700,000. Sell your home for 1.2. Give me the $700,000 back because I have another brother waiting or I have another sister waiting in line for this money. I will redeploy it. It's not a big deal on my end, right? I'm not here to exploit or take advantage of. Again, a murabaha style transaction is not haram. It's not exploitative. It's not, we agreed to it. Nobody is forcing you into a murabaha long-term contract, right? You can take a musharaka. 90% of our clients take a musharaka because they love the flexibility of musharaka. Nobody's stopping you.
The other, second.
Yeah.
So another second question, like you said, you are upfront deciding for 25 years.
Yes, pricing.
So like if we are living in Canada, we know that the interest rates are higher, but we are thinking that they will go down. So they change every 5 years, right? But why do not we have this flexibility in your terms that we can also look at 5 years and if they go down,
in musharaka you can, but in murabaha, brother, you can't. Murabaha is buy and sell.
Inshallah, we'll continue with your questions. And you can see from brothers and sisters, they still have more questions. So do not worry. However, those that decide to leave, please stop at the gym area and grab your food. There's a plenty of food We don't want just, you to leave without, inshallah. So please, do not just leave without stopping there. And, if those still they need to continue with us, we are here, bi'idhnillah subhanahu.
I think sister's turn, right? Let's get the sisters, and then we'll get back to the brothers, inshallah. Sisters, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I just have a question here. In case I don't want to go for a very long contract. And for example, I have a job today for whatever dollars, and then in 2 years, my financial conditions get really good, and I want to pay off as soon as possible. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. So another benefit of a Sharia compliant mortgage contract is it's not a closed contract, right? So at the bank, they will give you two pricing, two types of contracts. There's an open contract, which is more expensive, like it'll be a higher interest rate. Why? Because they give you the flexibility to pay off your contract without penalty. And then there is a cheaper pricing, but it's very restrictive. And they'll say, oh, you can only make 15% extra per month in payments. You can only pay 15% per year on your anniversary date, etc. Oh, and if you subhanAllah, make a lot of money or fall into a lot of money and you want to pay it off in full, we're going to charge you what they call as IRD, or interest rate differential, meaning give us the difference of interest between this price and this price for the remaining years. And it could cost you $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. That is a ribawi style contract with the banks. With Men's, alhamdulillah, all of our contracts are open, meaning you can prepay them as much as you want, as fast as you want. Especially under musharaka, again, under murabaha, you have to request for a discount if you want, but that doesn't stop you from making prepayment. Of course, you're just going to prepay not only your principal, but your profit as well.
Jazakallah khair. One more question I have. What is the waiting period with you?
There is no waiting list, sister.
There's no waiting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if there's guys that want one-on-one, maybe you guys can help.
They can meet you outside in the lobby.
Yeah, so for those that have to leave but still have questions, I'm sending my team to the main lobby area. So Brother Sam, Brother Saad, Brother Mohamad, even Brother Mustafa is available. They're all in the back.
Excuse me.
Just in case you have additional questions that you think you won't be able to get through and you have to leave, inshallah. Yes, go ahead, sister.
I have a question for the Sheikh, please, if he can answer me. We have this case, like I have the mortgage now, it's not a halal mortgage. And I'm waiting for the halal mortgage to approve me. What should I do now?
Say it again, please, sister. Say it again.
Sorry?
Repeat your question.
Oh, my question is, we are in this case. I have not a halal mortgage with the bank, and I'm waiting, or I want to apply to the halal mortgage company. What I should do until then?
Okay. Let me ask you first question before I answer you. When the first place you went and you bought the house, let's say, with that mortgage and it was not halal, did you inquire, did you get a fatwa about this? Did you ask, scholar, before you purchase your house or not?
No, I was under circumstances I have to buy the house or leave the house. So it's a little bit complicated case.
Yes.
So I don't have any choices, so I have to buy.
Because there are here two scenarios. If you ask already and you are in a state of darura, in a state of necessity, and the scholar said to you, go ahead, because in this case, there is a need, there is a darura, and you explain your circumstances, you don't have to worry. Now, if there's any liability from Islamic perspective, the Imam or the Mufti, the one he gave you the fatwa, will carry that. So you don't have to worry about this.
Jazakumullah khair.
And if you ask, about this. Now, if you don't ask and you make your judgment, now, since you're already involved in that transaction, if there's any sin involved, it's already there. Just ask Allah forgiveness and speed up, try your best to pay off as much as you can your debt. So do your best, to pay off in a faster way. So now let's say you are at the beginning of this transaction, and maybe in this case you will find a halal mortgage way that will take the burden on you, and then you can, do that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm not sure if Manzil, they can do this, or any other like institution. Brother Mohamad, he can answer that part. If you are at the beginning of your agreement and you wanna transfer that, it might work with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I said, if you get fatwa from the beginning, you don't have to do that. Just continue with this. And if you are not, just speed up as much as you can with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah forgiveness.
Jazakumullah.
Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. And sister, we're more than happy to assist you. Of course, we have to, underwrite you and make sure that you qualify. But we're happy to walk you through the process. And if this is something where we can help you with, inshallah, we can, convert your home into halal one, inshallah. Shall we move to the brothers now?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Because we talk about Sharia.
Yeah, closer.
Because we talk about Sharia, I'd like to ask, I'd like to make sure, is it allowed to make advertising for commercial business or business work in mosque? Because I hear hadith from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه لا يجوز البيع ولا الشراء ولا حتى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم دعا على هذا الشخص وقال لا أربح الله بيعك كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. So I think it's not allowed to make advertising for commercial work here.
Okay. First of all, we are not. So first of all, we are not buying and selling. We are educating the community about the very rare opportunities for halal options, and we are not here buying and selling. It's something you have to understand. We have not make any transaction. We have not having any client. We are educating the community. And the doors open in any company that our job and duties to introduce that to the community, because that opportunity is very rare. We want any companies that they are working hard for hours. If we are not supporting those ones, they're gonna close the doors and you're gonna have gonna have the struggle. And that why even in the first place they made that system. They did it for us. And if the community, they're not aware and not open, and they ask and they challenge them, that's why you are here, to challenge them to say, please show us, is that halal or not? This is the question. Now, if somebody will come to me, say, you know what, I want you to see, is that halal or not? Tell me, present it to me, is that halal or not? That's why we are here, to discuss that. That's in the main point, that's we are talking now about this specific product. But this is one of the rare products that, as I see, that's matching with the Sharia rules in all ways. Many other products, they claim that they are matching with all rules of Sharia, but actually, to be honest, even they are worse than the regular banks, the way how they are presenting their product. It is a profit organization. There's no doubt. If somebody, let's say somebody, selling halal meat, okay, they are gonna make a profit for this, but they are selling that for us. So we are making the transaction in the masjid and buying and selling in the masjid? We are not doing that. Yes. Okay, what's wrong with that? Tell me. Why you are tightening the halal for the community? Yeah, tell me, what's it? I do. No, I do. I know their process. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean I have control over this?
Keep it after.
So now if somebody will tell me that company selling halal meat, what do you mean? I have to, in order to say that's fine, in order to say, please, the Prophet ﷺ said, listen, you have to respect me as I respect you, okay, brother? Okay? One of the things that I personally hate, and you have to understand, everybody has to understand this, I hate debates, because the Prophet ﷺ said, أنا زعيم بيت في ربض الجنة لمن ترك المراء ولو كان محقا. I will guarantee a house in the highest place of Jannah if somebody will leave the debate and argument even if it was right. So now I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with this. You will say there's wrong with it? Okay, that's fine. Take whatever. I'm telling you, and between me and Allah, I'm telling you there's nothing wrong with something like this. We are supporting anyone. I'm in a person supporting any Muslim bringing any service to the community. Even if there is a restaurant halal, I want to support that person. There's a halal meat, I will support that person. Any product that's halal, because we are living in a society that's full of haram and full of doubt, and we want to have the halal alternative. How would people, they will know about it? This is the masjid. The masjid, not only for salah, the masjid for all services. And we have to understand that. This is very important. When the sister, she has a home and she not feel comfortable because she dealt with the regular banking institution, and now she will find the alternative, she will be happy. And the halal aspect is very important. So now any person will look, said, what, I have a halal product. Can you tell the community about? I'm telling you, there are many companies, they will see, I will look at it. I said, no, our door's not open because you have to change this, you have to change that. But this company, I look at it. Before I produce to you, I study all of these contracts. Just to tell you, that's one thing. These days, there is one restaurant, they want to take my word, that's to invite the community for that. And I went to see, because I want to find the opportunity for community. So I saw the halal meat was good. I look at the sources, I look all of that. But then he has alcohol section. I said, no, you know what? I'm not gonna endorse that because unless you make that free of alcohol, take it out of shelf, or minimum that you have a non-alcohol area, for example, like in that big restaurant. So we are careful about that, what we're endorsing, but it's a both ways. The community need services. And those providing the services, they need us. They need us as a community to support them. Which is really important. I'm telling you, if the scholars from the beginning, they said to the community, do not go to the banks and buy from them, we have not struggled nowadays for finding rare companies providing this profit and this service. That should be maybe 50 years ago, that they work from that time. So today we have many companies. You understand my point? When they said you cannot eat except halal meat, now alhamdulillah we're happy we find halal meat everywhere. If they did the same for those companies providing these services, they said you're not gonna go to a bank, then out of need, we're gonna come with many companies that nowadays they are standing up in the market. So that we don't want to miss this opportunity, brother. We are not having any profit of this or any, the only things that's bringing services to the community. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm not representing with any level. If I'm representing my community, not others. That's one thing. Second, if let's say in the future there are more manzil, for example, they change the regulation, and I will stand up to the community, said, brothers, you remember that one day we endorsed them? They are not anymore. We have no problem with that. If they are not keeping their words, if not keeping the right things, and we are aware of that. This is something, this is our principles, we are not, yes. Of course. Yeah, we are not representing anybody. Okay, is my word clear now? Allah barik feek. We're not representing anybody, in that, field. We are only looking at the halal alternative to bring it to the community. Do you agree with me? This is something important. Okay, so what's the alternative way to do it? What's the alternative way to do it? If the masjid never take the lead and will say, you know what, we are not going to really represent you, we're not going to really present you to the community unless you are sure about 1, 2, 3. So even those companies, there are many other companies, but to be honest, the way how they are conducting is not the right way. They make you to sign with them, and then at the end they make you to sign with the bank. Yes. If something happened, we have the courage to stand up. You don't need me. You don't know me, brother. I'll tell you something. You don't know me. I don't have all of that. I will stand up. Anyone will, making violation will make that clearly. We are going to be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before others. So let's make the mood is nice, mood Islamic way, and we build a trust. We are here to build the trust and to respect, each other. Jazakumullah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm very, very sorry. I want to ask you it might be a difficult question.
Nothing I haven't faced before.
Okay. It's only one question.
Tfaddal.
Mansell, what would happen if they go bankrupt?
Yeah.
Let's say I bought 5 houses.
Mm-hmm.
And during the 2008, George Bush and Obama was coming. Came the Chrysler. The Chrysler has been actually bailed out by Obama.
Yep.
How can I trust you with my money in case you go bankrupt?
Absolutely.
I thank you very much.
So what we've done, again, as a financial institution, is we put in risk mitigation and policies and procedures in place. Menzel, as a parent company, right, doesn't do all of its activities in this one entity. What happens is there are separate entities, right, that hold the money in trust under custody. In fact, we don't even hold the money, right? So if you invest in Menzel, let's say in the Menzel Mortgage Fund, the mortgage fund acts as its own entity. There's a board of trustees, and that board of trustees actually hires a fund manager. That fund manager is Menzel to basically execute on the transactions. If we don't execute on those transactions properly, then we get fired. The money is still in trust, right? And the mortgages are there and the assets are there. And then they go hire a new fund manager, right? And that money, right, is not only sitting in trust, but it's sitting in actually one of the largest financial institutions in Canada called CI Investor Services. And they protect every single account for up to $1 million, right? So this is called CIPF, like CDIC, which is only $100,000 for savings accounts and checking accounts. There's something for investments called CIPF, which is the Consumer Investor Protection Fund, up to $1 million, right? And again, all of these mechanisms are put into place to ensure confidence and trust amongst the retail investors, amongst the consuming investors, so that if anything were to happen, everything stays the same, except that I won't be here. Maybe they hire Sheikh to run the show, right? They'll replace me with somebody else because I couldn't do my job properly. Next question. Okay, tfaddal, brother.
Thank you. Thanks, Sheikh Mohamad and Dr. Mohamad, for facilitating this session. Actually, the mosque is the right place for this. I have a couple of questions regarding the retirement saving plans.
Yes.
Does Menzel have any connections with employers to facilitate this for Muslim employees?
So you're talking about like group plans, right? Group registered plans, yeah?
Exactly. The second thing, any plans for Menzel to become an Islamic bank with a fully completed services for Muslims to have accounts and so on? So this will be much easier for Islamic transactions. Thank you.
No, barakallahu feek, and two very important questions. So right now we don't have group RSP plans, but if there is an employer that's willing to facilitate and work with us, like we have the ability to do it, we just haven't done it because we haven't seen any demand in it, right? So it's not that we can't, we can, right? So if you're an employer or if your employer is willing to facilitate and bring on a Sharia compliant group RSP plan, they can definitely contact us. I'll leave you with my card, inshallah, and we can figure out how to make that work with your employer. On the second note, with respect to, long term, what is Menzil's vision? What we're trying to do today is become a bank, right, without being a bank, okay? Meaning the licensing and the requirements and the capital and all of the legal fees and compliance and all that stuff. Not that that would go away, but what we've done, with our wealth management program, with our Wasiyya program, with our Halal mortgage program is we've gotten certain licenses, right, to be able to produce these products. Our plan is by the end of this year, right, we will have Halal checkings and savings accounts available. We have found a partner that's willing to do this for us. And again, we will go through the complete Sharia process to ensure that these assets from the Muslim community are not commingled with the non-Muslim community, that these assets are used and deployed in a Sharia compliant manner via Menzil, right, through our financing programs, and that we can bring back those profits to the Muslim consumer. So at some point in time, we may have to. Maybe the regulators come back to us and say, hey, you guys have become so big, you're representing hundreds of thousands of clients, we need to regulate you. I said, okay, give me the license, no problem, right? But again, this cannot happen without the community. There needs to be a ta'awun, right? This concept of ta'awun in Islam that allows the community to come together and that we create these systems for ourselves outside of the systems that are being forced upon us, right? There is something right now that's going on which is called financial exclusion. Muslims right now today are financially excluding themselves in participating in Canadian financial services. Not because we hate Canada, but because there are products that do not align with our faith, they do not align with our ethics, and that they do not align with our way of life. And so what happens is we have lots of cash on the side, undeployed in the market, undeployed in real estate. We are not growing our own equity. We are not growing our own wealth. Just like the Sheikh said, imagine if the juhud was there 40 years ago to bring Islamic finance to Canada. And fast forward today, the halal meat industry is $2 billion, federally regulated, available everywhere. Where Islamic finance is today is where halal meat industry was 40 years ago. Where would the Muslim wealth be today? How much more zakah would we be able to pay? How much more sadaqah could we bring back into the community? Right? We are in this constant and unvirtuous cycle of fundraising and donations. Why? Because we're sitting on cash that still has to be paid 2.5% of zakah. Because it's undeployed. There's no avenues for us to deploy and make our money work. And now we're being penalized by 2.5%. Now we're also being penalized by 7% inflation. Jan 1, you're down 10%. Where are you going to make your return? Where are you going to make that money? In a halal way. It's very limited, right? And hence, this is why we're here today to provide these solutions, these products and services to benefit you and to benefit your community. Sister, please, تفضلي. وياك.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
First of all, thank you for the session and for coming to London. We really appreciate it. This is really the need of the time.
You're most welcome.
And secondly, I have a question. Like we know right now we are at the highest interest rate.
Yes.
So if we are going to enter into a transaction today, do you think we are being locked for the 25-year, or will there be any way to come out of that, or any refinancing option?
Yeah, so again, this is why most of our clients use our Musharaka product, because it's a renewable rate after 5 years, right? So they know that if I take a murabaha today, I probably will be paying more in the long term, right? And again, you have the option, right? If you are looking to purchase, you can use both murabaha and musharaka. If you're looking to transfer, you can only use musharaka, right? So you are limited with respect to transfers with musharaka, but again, you still end up with a more flexible product. So we are by no means forcing you to choose between which product, right? We are saying that murabaha, in order for it to be done properly, has to be done this way with respect to pricing permanently for the full term. With musharaka, you have the flexibility, and that's why 95% of our clients use it, because in 5 years' time, we expect profit rates to be declining, lower than what they are today, and inshallah, you'll benefit from that for the next 5 years and the next 5 years after that.
And just one more question, like since we are based in London and your office is in Mississauga, so do you do the transaction virtually, like if we want to
We've done transactions all over Ontario. Alhamdulillah, we just expanded into Alberta. We have 2 transactions closing in Alberta this month, completely virtually.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
وإياك. تفضل. وإياك. Is there any more questions from the sister? Yes, go ahead.
My question is in regards of the musharaka. So the only difference between your company and the conventional mortgage is that your company's on the title. Is that correct?
So actually, what you need to understand is we are contractually, right, partners, but we actually give you full title, right? So we avoid all of these tax issues, and this has nothing to do with Sharia, right? Legally, we are still partners together, but we are giving you title. And so we have an ownership stake in your property without having to be on title, which is completely fine. But we still give you that title because we don't want you to incur any additional tax.
The way it is done, that there is a separate contract between me and you,
There's only one contract between us and you.
but the title is, like, my name is on the title.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, what about the percentage, the interest?
The profit rate?
For musharaka, it is still an interest because
No.
every 5 years,
No.
every 5 years, the percentage is different.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's interest. What I'm telling
An
you,
Islamic interest.
it's not interest. There's no Islamic interest.
So
Profit rate.
what would you call it? Profit.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so in musharaka, right? So let's say you own 50% of the home, and I own 50% of the home.
Okay.
Right? I own 500 shares. You own 500 shares. Okay. I say, okay, sister, I'm going to sell you 10 shares. I'm allowed to price them any which way I want. I can sell you 10 shares for $1,000, 10 shares for $10,000, 10 shares for $1 million. You can agree to buy those shares at that price or not. If you don't want to buy them at that price, then you actually have to buy my 500 shares out via other financing methods. Or you find cash from somebody, your community, or you find another investor, okay?
Or even sell the property.
Or even sell, absolutely, exactly. Now, what I'm telling you is for your comfort level, I'm willing to price my shares for the next 5 years so that you have stability, right? I'm telling you that every share I'm going to sell you for the next 5 years is $2. And after 5 years, I'm going to reevaluate, and you will have the ability to either accept the new rate for the next 5 years or not. So think of it in that manner.
Okay, for the rates, do they go up and down, or do they always
no,
go up?
we're doing fixed 5 years, right?
Okay.
And as the previous sister said,
After the 5 years?
after 5 years, we expect that the rates are to be lower, right? Because right now we're in the peak, right? The Bank of Canada this week or last week announced that they're not moving rates. So inshallah, we will either see a stabilization and then of course a decline, right? So that's why many people take the 5-year musharaka, because they know that in 5 years' time, they're not going to be in like an equal or higher rate. It should be lower. Now, you may say to yourself, you know what? I'm not going to take that bet. I want to take a fixed rate now because they're going to raise interest rates again. Okay, then go into murabaha, right? You can go into a murabaha for 10 years, for 15 years, for 20 years, for 25 years.
Okay, I have one more question.
Tfaddali.
Whether it is musharaka or murabaha, could it be an investment property, or do I have to reside?
You can do an investment property, no problem. We don't care.
And you're not partner in the income that I'm going to be getting from this property?
No, we don't want it. We just want our profit rate. That's it. Okay, back to the brothers.
So I'm gonna crunch up some numbers with you.
Huh? Nice.
I buy a house for $1 million. Say in 25 years, it's gonna cost me $1.5 million. Just
Sure.
For example. But now in 5 years, I want to look at it, maybe want to sell it. Now in 5 years, if you divide $500,000, in 5 years, maybe it's $100,000 does he charge me $100,000 every 5 years? Why am I responsible for? So does this make sense to you?
Yeah, so again, as I mentioned to the other brother, right? When, like, you're going to enter into a contract with a number of years that you want it for, right? So you're going to say, brother, give me a 25-year contract because the payments are lower if I do it over 25 years versus over 5 years. So I buy the house for $1 million, I sell it to you for 1.5. Now, 5 years later, you're going to say, hey, I need to sell, I have to move, I don't need this house anymore, right? And contractually, again, under murabaha, this is a sharia thing. This is not because I want to take advantage of you. This is not because, I want to take all your money and I want to profiteer. This is a sharia thing. You owe me the full 1.5. However, you can come and provide a written request and say, will Menzel give me a gift or a discount on the remaining profit? I don't want to pay the remaining profit. I've already paid you $100,000 in profit. I don't want to pay you the other $400,000. I can say yes, and I can say no.
And how about if you have the conditions where in 5 years it could be this, and if pull out? So you'll make it a little bit clear. Does that go against?
No, that goes against Sharia. It would be a ribawi-based contract because you're involving a guaranteed discount. Yeah. We'll get to this brother too because he's been waiting as well. Inshallah. Sorry, it's okay. I'm here. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. It's okay. No, alhamdulillah. We've been well fed. Thank you very much. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I know all these like aunties and uncles like knowing you, but I just want to say like jazakallah for coming out here. My friend and I, / business partner, venture kind of person, we heard that you're coming here and like he like dropped everything. And, so,
MashaAllah,
we're really glad that you really like took the time and came out here to like educate us about all this stuff. I was paying attention to your presentation and I was intrigued by the fact that you were saying something along the lines that there was no financial like system that existed before Islam. So what factors sort of moved like the society and our world to favor like the financial system that we have today, and why is it not the Islamic
system?
So
if you think about during the time of the basically the Catholic Church, right? So the Vatican. So at the time of the Medicis, what happened was people were borrowing from the Catholic Church, right? And they actually introduced the concept of a discount bond, okay? And so what that meant was, people will look at it as a play on murabaha, which is like, okay, well, I'm going to lend you, contractually it's $1, but you owe me 90 cents, and that plus 10% is the profit, right? So they kind of built it in. And you know what? It just became the main mode of finance. It just kind of spread. And from the Vatican, it spread across Europe and then into Western, and then obviously, it just kind of, again, with riba, you have to think about the compounding effect, right? When you think of today, the equity markets are 10 times less than the bond markets, meaning that there's 10 times more debt in the world than there is assets backing them, right? In an Islamic finance system, that wouldn't occur. It would be 1-to-1. And so this whole system of greed, this whole system of compounding and taking advantage is what allows, right, our debt our systems to be highly leveraged, highly indebted, and then highly risked, right? If you think about what's happening with Silicon Valley Bank as of late, that's exactly what's happening, right? Even 2008 crisis, right? And so, again, you can't control people's greed. They don't have a theological and philosophical system to adhere to, right? Yes, we understand that under Judaism and under Christianity, usury, right? The term usury is mentioned. Has it been adopted, widely adopted? No, right? Even actually when you talk to the Yahud, what they say is, oh, well, amongst the Yahud, we don't charge interest. But if you're non-Yahud or non-Jewish, we will charge as much interest as we can. That's in their system, that's fair, right? Under Canada, you know what the criminal rate of interest is in Canada? Sorry? 60%. You can charge 60% interest in Canada without going to jail. 60. So yeah, under, right, Canadian law, the term usury is 60.01%. Right? That is their definition. But that's not Allah's definition. Right? That's not the Rasul. Like, again, we have scriptures that came from 1400 years ago. And those laws are still applicable today. These laws in Western society are ever changing. Somebody today says, oh, let's create some derivative product backed by this, asset class that has been packaged and repackaged. And okay, yeah, somebody's willing to buy it, sell it, because I can make money off of it. But there's no ethics involved, right? There's no guidelines to say, well, you can't do that, right? We have a system that has do's and don'ts. Hopefully that answers your question. Brother. Just use the app. Faddal, brother. Oh, there's another. Okay. Inshallah.
I just wanted to just pick up on a point which you said that, the Islamic financial system has been there for 1400 years. So my issue with this, with the pricing, is that it all depends on the duration of the tenor that you're going for. So if it's 25-year tenor, you pay more in absolute terms. So you would pay under a Muraba contract, you would pay, for example.
Yeah, but brother, it's no different in the conventional system. So even if you go to a bank, right, and you ask for a 5-year mortgage, they say 5%. Ask for a 10-year, they'll say 7%. Right? Because the cost of money, or the risk, because there's associated risk with time, right? And so the longer the term, again, the more, I told you, 2 years ago, I was selling murabahas at 4.5%. That was my risk. There was risk associated with that, and I lost. Okay, mashi, no problem. It's no different. Shorter terms equals less risk, less pricing, or cheaper pricing. Longer terms, more risk, more pricing. Whether it's Islamic or non-Islamic. This is like Finance 101.
Okay, so was there an example from those times that, obviously there probably wasn't, but can we find an example from the time of the Salaf that, pricing was done in a similar way as we do now?
I don't have an example for you, but again, under a murabaha, there has to be mutual agreement, right? So if I tell you, hey brother, this is my price, and you don't like it, you don't have to buy it, right? Now, we have benchmarks, right? You could be like, well, I went to this other institution, and they're selling it for a similar price. So that gives you an anchor, and then it's a comparison. And then I come back and I say, yeah, I'll give it to you for the same price or lower. But again, there has to be mutual agreement. It has to be worth my risk. It has to be worth your risk. That's like, and that's, I don't know if there's a specific example, Ayyam Rasul, where there was a long-term contract involved for a transaction, Sheikh. Delayed payment, yeah. Yeah.
The beginning after a bit of time, after the period, and how the person can take it, that's up to him.
Yeah.
That's government not go beyond this. That's happening the way for buying or selling, however, the government, they can never even involved in the pricing. The Prophet actually said, do not put the price for government. But they did that between people. But even after that's not ironic. Then it was a need for that because the people they were like, making hard. They said, no, let's make taxing one for then regardless of the item. But now that's even for the one who's paying up front. What do you think about somebody after depend on the agreement? So there is no formula or equation or a percentage. That's you cannot say, I see that one or that will be. However, that's one of the things that I like about it. I'm not thinking advantage of like some of what they call Islamic, housing or Islamic mortgage, where they are taking advantage and it ends up really way much even than regular banks, where kind of enforcing people go to house. Very bad,
competitive. Competitive.
Yes, it's very like, correct me if you're wrong, less than 1%, the difference,
Yes.
0.5 or something
Yep.
like that in all cases. That's, and there is some companies, after you pay installment, they price the house, and if it costs more, the market, you pay the difference. Imagine?
Yeah, they take profit.
Yeah.
تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام. وإياك.
For the musharaka, do you have any application fee or broker fee?
No. We have an administration fee. So we don't have an application fee, meaning like you have to pay upfront in order for you to apply, and it's like a deposit and it's non-refundable, right? So whether every Menzel mortgage that's financed, there is a 2% administration fee, which is the revenue that we attract. Because the reason why our rates are so competitive, it's not our money. Our investors request a return, and so we say, you know what? We're not going to add, 5% margin to make our business model work. We say, okay, we're going to charge 2% administration fee one time upfront based on the financing amount, and that's it, right? And you have an open agreement. You can pay it off as many times, as often as you want, as soon as you want. And so, we find that this is fair to at least allow us to operate and also to grow our business. And over time, as we get bigger and as we get more money capitalized and we get more deployed, you get into what we call economies of scale, right? So economies of scale allows you to price compress, open up more of the market, right? But at the end of the day, it's no different than, my dad and whoever's, previous, generation bought halal meat for a premium. We should be thanking them for buying it at a premium, because if they didn't buy it at a premium, then there would have been no market today, right? Because that allowed them to grow their business, that allowed them to expand, and that allowed them to bring more, right? And so this is where Islamic finance is today. It's in its infancy stages. Yes, it's at a premium, but it's not at that much of a premium, and it will only get cheaper from here. I can promise you that. Sister, do you still have mic? Is there any questions on your end? Maybe not? No? Okay. Conclusion. تفضل. وعليكم السلام.
جزاكم الله خير.
وإياك.
For the retirement, what's the minimum share you can start with?
$1. For investment? Yeah, $1 is the minimum. Yeah, for RSPs, TFSAs, that's what you're asking about? Yeah, the Menzel Invest program is available for a minimum of $1. No excuses. Next question. Everything is online, Sheikh. We will even help you.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for coming. So, do you funding the businesses as well, or just homes?
Are we funding the business?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have external investors that are allowing us to operate. We have a path to profitability, inshallah, sometime this year. So yeah, it's not just us. We do have a number of shareholders that we basically are responsible for.
Okay, do you have more information about how does it work?
You mean like investing in the business? What do you want
If
to
I do
know?
have a project and I need a fund to establish my business, do you fund that?
Oh, you're talking about funding for businesses? We
Yes.
don't do commercial right now. Sorry. Yeah, I thought you meant like how are we operating our business? Yeah, sorry. But we understand commercial financing is a big need, and inshallah at some point we will have it available. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Garib? Yeah.
Do you have any packages like, if we are talking numbers, if someone wants to buy musharaka for 1 million house, so he needs to pay 20%. And is there like another 200 or 400 you put towards investment, and it pays the difference between the two?
Yes. So you're talking about like kind of self-funding the mortgage?
Yeah, say for example, I've got 400.
Yeah.
and
We
I'm-
have many people that have done
I'm
that.
targeting for
Yep.
the 1 million, and the 500,000 is paid within investment of the rest, the remaining of the.
Yeah, so you can do that as long as you put the minimum 20% down payment. So if you have $500,000 and you want to get $1 million home, we would say, okay, put the 200,000 as down payment. Your 300,000 goes as an investment. We will take that 300, we will add 500, right? So there's 800, and that's your financing, but you are actually paying yourself on the, like you're getting a return on your 300,000. Yeah. We have many clients that have done that. It's called like a self-funded mortgage program.
And once it is paid off, do I get my 300?
Well, it stays as an investment. You can keep it. Yeah.
So do you have like 1, 2, 3, whatever?
They're not really packages. Honestly, you would just like communicate with us.
Sorry?
We would just communicate with each other to better understand your situation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then we would say, okay, like, because don't like invest the money and then we use the money for somebody else's mortgage, right? Like you would have to email us and say, hey, I'm going to invest this amount and I want to use this for my own, right, mortgage, so that we keep the money aside just for you.
Like you said, 3 or 4%, whatever.
Yeah.
And it pays the difference.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like this, yeah?
It's the same. Inshallah. So I used to be a financial planner, okay? And we always said, pay the minimum down payment. The minimum. Why? Minimum down, as long as you can afford the payments, invest the rest. Because usually your investment should outpace, right? The cost of your mortgage. And don't forget, you have more equity in the home working for you and growing for you. Again, at the end of the day, our mentality as a Muslim community has always been debt-free, risk-free. Because there were no financing mechanisms. Now that you have financing mechanisms, why would you want to accelerate paying off these assets? You're in a halal financing agreement. It's not debt, right? So use the money for other aspects, right? Again, this was never available, so I can understand the mentality, but now that it's available, we have to shift that mindset.
Jazakallah khair.
وإياك. بارك الله فيكم وجزاك الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
تفضل شيخ. On your behalf, would like to thank Dr. Mohamad Sawwaf. May Allah bless him. And again, this is just one of the companies that they are trying their best, to provide the halal alternative. So if any of those other companies or whatever there, we put the pressure on them. They have to make a halal product, and the door is open for them, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the community, they have many challenges in different ways. and we try, our best to provide, what we can, for the community. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.